Welcome back to What Sold, the channel where I show you what I sold. I'm a full-time reseller. I sell multiple areas, mostly on eBay and online platforms. I'm going to tell you and show you things that I have actually sold. You're going to see just from my eBay page the actual price. I'll tell you where I got it, how much I paid, how long it took to sell, and if I do it again. Any tips I have, I'll give. So no fluff here, just the stuff. Let's do it. Okay, first off, today we have this gold-filled pendant, and this pendant is, it's got actual gold, tiny little gold flecks, gold nuggets in it. It's made in such a way where you have kind of like either a plastic or glass kind of piece on either side, and you can see this area right here in the middle. It's got a screw that screws that metal part around it, and it's encasing this gold. It's made as a pendant. These are sold heavily in like the 1970s and even into the 80s in places like Alaska and other states that have gold as like just souvenirs or things for tourists to buy. Like, hey, look, I got some gold from Alaska. The case itself was gold filled, so 1/20th of it was 12 karat gold. And so $60, just one bidder. This is like the second or third time I've sold ones like this. I bought this at a thrift store for $3 because people didn't know what it was. So if you ever come across that kind of thing, definitely get it because it's solid gold, like pieces on the inside, and just for keepsakes or as specimens, people will buy those. Next up was this kind of bizarre looking necklace. You can see it has what appears to be like antler or bone. I actually don't know what the material is. But you have a square cut piece of lapis, which is a mineral, and then round lapis beads with some kind of brass hardware around it, and then the rope is kind of a cord type rope. But this is a vintage early piece by Miriam Haskell, and I'm trying to get through the pictures so you can see on the clasp at the top it has her name. That's a maker. It's a pretty heavily collected brand, so keep that in mind. Haskell, if you ever see that, if it's $10 or less, you're probably going to do pretty well on it. This took a lot longer to sell than I expected, and a lot lower price, frankly, based on other ones I saw. So this one was, I would say, probably a little bit of a disappointment. This did not get purchased individually. We bought a large jewelry collection earlier this year, and this was just one piece out of that. We've already made our money back, and we are well into profit. At this point, I accepted the best offer for $44. It sold for $44. Again, if I had paid $10 or less dollars, most of the time when I buy pieces of jewelry, I'm paying $2 or $3. And so if you ever come across one like this, it's definitely going to be worth it. You can make some good money off of that brand. Next up is a hat. And it's in good condition. It's a little bit of an older hat. It's probably from the 90s. And, you can see, I'm kind of showed all the different spots here. Might have even been from the 80s, but I think it's probably from the 90s. It's an Oregon Ducks hat. These types of hats, trucker hats, especially certain types, can sell for lots of money, hundreds of dollars a piece. But anymore, I've noticed that the biggest trend right now is these script hats of sports teams from the 90s that can go across any sport. Baseball, basketball, football, hockey. Right here you have Oregon Ducks. This is a hat I paid 50 cents for. I have probably 175 various hats between hats like this and trucker hats that I've got for sale at different places. But I was very happy about this one. Put it up. And I first put it up for about $250, I think. I had watchers. I had sent offers. Nobody bought. Eventually, I kept lowering it until somebody said, hey, I'll do $172. Easy yes, since I paid 50 cents. But hats, things like hats and ties and sunglasses and stuff like that, there's several categories of things that regularly at thrift stores you can pay 50 cents or $1 for. And if you know what to look for, and by script I mean you can see that the word Oregon is sewed on there in a cursive script. That's what I'm talking about. So cursive script, sports hats, there's a big collector craze and base for that right now. Next up, this is a pair of snow boots, snowboarding boots that are Nike brand and some kind of bizarre like lime green avocado colors here. Very cool. They had never been used, or maybe used once, but they looked essentially brand new. There's no wear hardly. I paid up for these at a thrift store. I'd never seen them before. When I got on looking up, they're pretty rare. They didn't make a lot of them, and certainly not in this color. I paid $100 for them, and I held on to them for about 60 days, sold them for $245. Pretty happy with that. It would have been nice if I could got $350 out of them, which is what I started at. But again, sometimes you just got to lower things until you find that buyer who's ready to buy. Here was a necklace I bought at a thrift store for $3. They didn't realize it, but it was sterling silver. This is kind of an art glass piece here on the top with some kind of gold flecks types, looking thing inside. Very easily and obviously marked on the back, but people weren't caring. And that's the thing about a lot of these thrift stores. The employees, they don't know how to inspect stuff. All they know is, we sell necklaces for $3. We sell brooches for $3, or whatever. Rings are $2. And so they're not even looking at it to see if it's made of precious metals. They're not looking to see if it's a designer name. They're just saying, necklace, $3. They price it, they put it out. And so if you can find a place like that, you can do pretty well. One bid, $30. So that's a 10 time your investment. And that's great. These are vintage sunglasses. They're smaller, like kids sizes, and I paid I paid 50 cents a piece for these. So I'm in $1.50. They're vintage glasses, vintage and antique glasses. Sell very well for me, especially if they're gold filled or have some sort of precious metal or come with the original case, like antique glasses from the late 1800s, early 1900s. $16. Again, I'm $1.50 in, so that was pretty easy. I have a vintage lure. Fishing lure, and it was in really good condition. This thing was really attractive looking. I mean, it's got bright colors. You can see it has kind of this fake eyeball on either side to make it look like a creature. It was segmented, and it had a wire sort of connection between them so that it could articulate as it was moving through the water. Speckled. It's a Lucky Strike brand, a Canadian piece, over 5 inches long. Vintage and antique fishing items, particularly lures, can sell for lots of money, depending on. But there are so many different types out there, so you really need to do some research. Just because it's old looking doesn't mean it's going to bring lots of money. But I bought from another picker, I bought 25 lures for $100, and they were probably 100 lures or 150 lures that I was looking at, and I picked through and picked the 25 that I wanted the most, and I went and sold those. So you can see this one by itself sold for $30. So 30% of my investment was back on this one. I'd already sold probably maybe 15 to 18 before this. I was already into profit before this one. This was straight profit for me. So if you know enough about lures, you can even find these on places like Facebook Marketplace. All the time people are selling like a tackle box full of vintage lures and stuff. Now, some people know what they are. And they're gonna, they're really gonna charge you some good money, or try to get really good money out of it. But other people don't know.
Okay, this next item here is this Taylor Swift Old Taylor collection. It's the Speak Now blanket. We bought these, about 4 of them, before that, when they were first released, and we had to wait a couple months to actually get them in the mail. And a lot of people were throwing them up on eBay before they had even arrived, saying this is like a pre-order purchase type thing. And so it looked like people were selling them for like $300, and so we thought this could be a great opportunity. I paid $75 for the blanket, and by the time they came, I think a lot of the hype had already moved on, and people were and Taylor Swift had launched like new merch since then, or like after that, and so it wasn't as lucrative as I thought it was going to be. So we sold 3 of the 4 blankets, and each one was around $100. You can see this one sold for $114. So we were making $25 on the blankets. Now it says out of stock here on this here, but they one of them sold they before we had a chance to ship it. They canceled the order and said, "Hey, I found another one that I actually wanted to buy." And so I was like, "Whatever," you know. So we canceled. So we have one more still out there on the store.
Here is another one from that same lot, another lure. This was like the second highest sale of this lure lot, so $42. So now you know, when you see this, ones that have these kind of metal, almost like guards around the edges of the the hooks on the sides, tend to do really well. It has a spinner in the front, so this one was really good. Again, 42% of my investment on lot of 25 was back to me within this one sale, and just these two, it was almost $75, so 75% off of these two. I was pretty happy about that.
Okay, so these next two things I'm going to talk about. One, I wanted to share that we sold them and what we paid for them and the price that we sold them for, but also I just want to share a story. So this item here, this ProTech Street, these like skateboarder, rollerblader, like skate protective wrist guards. They're size small. Listed them for $12, sold for $9. Took a best offer for $9. But I got these at the bins. It was a Goodwill bins purchase, and they looked like they were in excellent, new condition. Just they were in a pile at the bins, and they just, something about them looked like that might be a good deal. And I quickly looked up sold comps while I was there, and so I went for it. And we bought several other things, and the way the Goodwill bins pricing is by weight, and based on like the other things that we bought, I pretty much paid nothing for these, and so yeah, it was $9. It turned basically nothing into $9. And why I bring this up is because it recently sold, but I went and bought this at the bins well over a year ago. And it was really when we were just taking our eBay reselling business to the next level, where kind of doing it on a more consistent, regular basis, and actually trying to turn it into real income instead of just kind of on the side here and there every once in a while thing. And so there's a lot of lessons learned at the beginning, and this is one of those lessons where just because it looked like somebody else had listed them and sold them, I thought I could too. And you know what? I sat on this for almost 2 years. And when I actually sold it, I sold it for $9. And so same with this item here, these vintage leather Q tips. They go on these little, you can see there's a variety of sizes, but they're these leather tips that go on the end of a pool stick or a Q stick. I was at an estate sale, and when I was going to estate sales, or I was going to estate sales every week, and just going through every item, I assumed that every item there could potentially be something to make money off of. And so I was scanning and looking up sold comps on everything. I'd be there from the moment they opened until, I was there for hours, just slowly working my way through every item, scanning it, looking it up to see if I could sell it. And you know what? It looked like I might make a little money off of this. They were brand new, and I paid 50 cents, nothing at all for these, and sat on them for like almost 2 years, and sold them for $9. So anyway, I just pointed out that when I saw that it sold, I'm like, wow! It just took me back to when I was first getting started, and it made me laugh. So I wanted to share that with you. Okay, this next item is a really cool item. It's this Howler Brothers Quintana quilted flannel. It's tan. It's a men's small, new with tags. Pick this up. And I hate to say it, honestly, I don't remember exactly where we got it or how much we paid for it. Not much at all, I believe. My best guess is that we got this at a thrift store and paid $8 for it. And just kind of like based on where we go, the local thrift stores that we tend to go to, and how they price things. So it is a really cool shirt. It's got this, it's flannel. It's got these lined shoulders. It seemed pretty warm. It just wasn't my size. But so I didn't, otherwise I probably would have kept it. But we listed it for 80 and took a best offer for 50.
Now we have this vinyl album, Searching for Sugarman. And this is an artist named Rodriguez. A number of years ago, maybe a decade ago at this point, maybe a little bit more, there was a documentary that came out about this artist who essentially was kind of an up-and-coming singer-songwriter person, and he was basically sort of taken advantage of by the record label and kind of faded into obscurity. Little did he know that his music had made its way to South Africa and was a very big component in the cultural shift during apartheid, and meant a lot to that culture and that people, and they were highly collectible. And people didn't know where he was. They thought he was dead. They weren't sure. Anyhow, I bought this at that time, and when that movie came out, with the intention of reselling it at some point. I had no intention of doing it anytime soon, except that he passed away. And literally the day that he passed away, I got an offer for $90 on this, and I paid about 20 at the time, so I sold it. So when people pass away, I guess there is an increased interest in their items. It's like a peak of popularity or interest, I guess. And so I did sell this. I held on to it for a while, but it sold, and it was a pretty good profit.
Okay, this next item, if you've watched any of our videos in the past, you will know, and you'll learn that vintage pencils can sell decently. You know, if you get in at the right price. And know what you're looking for, and also how you lot them up and describe them in the description. What we're looking at here is a lot of 47 green colored pencils. Now the external shaft of that is black, but the lead, if you will, is green. This nice green. 47 pencils, most of them unsharpened and unused. Got these at these were, some of them I had to throw out, but there are, probably close to 50 of them in a bag that we got at a thrift store, and probably paid $2 for them and sold them for 15. So not a huge flip, but it is money coming back, into our pockets. So and they do sell. So keep an eye out for vintage pencils, or even high-end pencils, high-end colored pencils. Know what to look for. You can find some, advertising pencils and pens can do really well, and you can tend to find those at estate sales. I wouldn't pay. I would try to keep it to less than $5 usually, and you can usually get them in huge bags, huge lots. So keep an eye out.
Here we have a really nice vintage guitar. It's a Martin Model 018, and I play a few instruments as a hobby, and so guitars is one of them. In fact, that's how I got started doing reselling, as I had experience buying and selling instruments just as a hobby early on, long before I got into this full time. But I purchased this instrument for $1,000. I did a little bit of repair work on it, sold it for nearly $2,000. So that's a pretty good turnaround. I would say if you want to do buying and selling of instruments, you should definitely do your research. But generally speaking, Martin, Gibson, some of these vintage guitars, vintage instruments typically have a pretty good collector market, but you're going to be spending some good amount of money. Buying something for $1,000 to sell it for $2,000 is a different animal than buying something for $3 and hoping to make 30 out of it. I certainly, even now, I can't be buying, multiples of these at a time because I don't have that kind of cash flow, but it is nice to do it from time to time, and it's fun to play them in between. Just kind of to check them out and see what they sound like. I bought this rack from a local thrift store. I think I paid $8 for it, and this is a Thule brand, like kind of bar here that is used to secure like a bicycle to the back of a vehicle. So $8, $30. It was 1 week sale, $30. You know, I made $15 after the fees, and so nothing spectacular, but that's a lot of what we do here. Is if we think that we can make some money on it, if it's enough to be worth our time, then we'll jump on it. But there are things all the time that I see and I don't buy. I know I could make money on it, but the amount of time it would take for me to list it or repair it or whatever, and the amount of time I think it'll take to sell it, and how long I'll be floating that money, it just is not worth it for me. But that's different for everybody. Here's a little lot of brooches and earrings, things that all kind of were similar in design and style, also roughly from the same period of time. And they all just kind of went together, so I put them in a small lot together. These came in just like a jewelry bag of mixed jewelry that I paid like $5 for, and so I found some nice stuff. I found actually a couple of pieces of silver and gold in there, and so it was easily made my money back and some profit. And so these were just some things that I thought, you know what, this would be worth selling. Not just in a large lot, I could actually probably sell these, and I wasn't wrong. So $36 for that. Took a couple of weeks, but I was happy with that. I really enjoy vintage watches and pocket watches. I just think that they're fascinating, the design. And so this was a Waltham brand. I come across Elgin, Waltham, Gruen, Illinois. There's just a variety of these antique brands that are pretty well known for these pocket watches. And I bought this for $10. And the reason it only cost me $10 was that it was missing the crystal. So it was broken off. And even maybe, so here's the hinge, as you can see. And at the bottom here, you would pop it up. And on the inside, then you could see the back side of the movement. But so the crystal's missing. However, the face was still in pretty good condition. It wasn't really damaged significantly. The chronograph portion at the bottom, it still worked. You could twist it and it worked, but it just was missing a couple of components. It's like a silver-plated situation. It wasn't sterling. And so I got this up, and it sold pretty quickly for $55. Might have even been able to make a little bit more, but because it needed some repair work, I was fine selling it at that in order to move it fairly quickly. So I bought about 8 jars of marbles at an estate sale not long ago, and I paid $10 a jar. So it was $80 in on the marbles. As I went through with a blacklight, which I guess my blacklight is not sitting here next to me where it normally is. I think it's in a different part of the warehouse. But anyways, I have like a blacklight that you can put on it. And some marbles, some vintage antique marbles, are either made of what they would call Vaseline glass or uranium glass. And this would be more uranium because they're an opaque base, but they have uranium. Vaseline glass would be more translucent or transparent, clear ones that also, but they light up, but they fluoresce under fluorescent light. And so I was happy that among these 3 jars, I came out with around 180 marbles that had uranium in them, and people collect them just for what they are. So this was one of the 2 lots. I had one lot of 100, one lot of the 80. So I sold this lot for $60. So if you're going back to the cost of all the jars, $10 a jar, 8 jars, so I was $80 in. This lot sold for $60, and the lot of 100 sold for $80. So I spent $80. I'm already $140 back. And that's just the marbles that had, and this is what they looked like. They were made by the Fenton Glass Company, which you may know Fenton Glass. They make hobnail stuff with the bumps. They make a variety of pieces of glassware, vases and things like that, and also oil lamps and stuff. But they're very pretty. They were very shiny. There's this milky kind of but opaque base. This is what they look like in natural light. And then again, this is what they look like when you put them in the dark under fluorescent lights. So I was pretty happy with that, and I still have somewhere around 18 pounds of I would say newer marbles from roughly the 1970s forwards. But I also have a large collection of antique and vintage marbles, as well as like German marbles that are all handmade. They have the pontil marks on them. Marbles are, I think, are also interesting. It's not the type of toy that a lot of kids are playing with these days, as much as in years past, but there are some pretty unique pieces out there, and if you come across certain types, they can be worth hundreds of dollars. Next, we have this antique grocery store. It's basically like an account book, like a ledger. I buy this type of paper ephemera all the time. A lot of times in bundles, I'll get 10 or 12 documents, or scrapbooks, or ledgers, or accounting books, or things from old educational stuff from teachers, where they were kind of doing lessons and grading and stuff. But this was very small. It was only maybe 4 inches wide by 6 inches tall. Actually, yeah, 7 inches long. So I had several of these. I think I paid $20 for a lot of about a dozen, and they've slowly been selling over time. This one was $18. I've sold some for as much as $40 a piece. And they're antique. They're from the 1800s.
Okay, this next one it's an interesting story. It started off as this GeoTrax North Pole Express Christmas train set. We had it listed for $70. And it came with the original box, but it was missing some pieces. And so because the original box is, it's a large box. And so when he factored in shipping it in that original box and putting all the pieces in that original box into a much larger box, like the shipping costs were pretty high. And somebody contacted me and said they really wanted this, but the shipping was too high. And they said, what I really care about is the train and the controller. They didn't care about any of the extra pieces. And we kind of went back and forth. And he said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to spare you all the back and forth. It wasn't like any issues, the back and forth. It was just trying to figure out how to make this deal happen. Turns out they didn't care about that it was in the original box. And I said, if I ship it to you, I could probably save money by not shipping it in the original box. I can condense it and, it'd be much, much cheaper. They said, I don't care about the box. So, and then it was kind of like, well, I'll tell you what, let's do the controller, the train, and a few of these like little train pieces over here in this picture. And then he said, I noticed that you have a Red Cross pin in your store. How about $70 for the whole set and the Red Cross pin? And so I might be messing up the details. It might have been priced a little bit higher than the $70. But then anyway, so I said, the way I figured it out, like calculated it out by what I save them in shipping, and the Red Cross pin was listed for $7 free shipping. And I was going to lose money on the free shipping because, it's due to the dimensions of the pin, this pin right here. It would have cost me like regular first class shipping, and I couldn't put it in a regular envelope because it would have been just thick enough that it would have bumped it outside of that 80-cent shipping charge. So through eBay. So I was like, it worked itself out that I went ahead, I took the offer, I said sure, but but before I just accepted it, I wanted to relist it exactly how he wanted. Instead of trying to do 2 different transactions and then combine shipping, I took down the listing, the Red Cross listing, and made a new listing with the pieces that they wanted, the Red Cross pin, and I made it very clear, to exactly what we agreed on. I put that in the listing. Missing pieces includes the Red Cross 8-gallon donator pin, And I may have said in the, let's see, in the description, did I say, okay, I didn't say anything about not in the original box, but I didn't want them to, when they got it, be able to say, hey, I got this, but that's not what was described in the listing, you know, and get into some sort of refund thing and get taken advantage of. So anyway, that's what I did. I revised the description, and so it looks pretty funny. Like that, I was not originally trying to sell Geo Tracks and a Red Cross 8-gallon pin. That was the terms of of the offer, and which, by the way, that's pretty wild. 8 gallons. That's quite an accomplishment, I think. Somebody donated 8 gallons of their blood to the Red Cross. And I picked this up at an estate sale. And I'd been sitting on it for a long time. I paid 25 cents or less for it. Sitting on it for a long time, was trying to get $7 out of it. And the fact that somebody was interested in it, I thought, okay. And so anyway, that is that. Pretty wild story.
This was a Wilcox brand, silver-plated, I wrote oil lamp. It's kind of made to look like an old lamp that you would hold, or even like an old candle holder that you would hold. It had this ornate kind of floral design pattern around the side of it. You can see some pretty heavy tarnishing of the silver. Now, if I had cleaned this, it would have shined really bright. It is tarnished, but it didn't seem like there was a ton of wear on the sides. Now, on the top, though, you can see there was some significant wear of that plating, revealing that it is a brass base underneath. But you would put a little cloth wick up at the top, you'd put oil inside, you'd just light the top of the wick, and it would just, the oil would go up the wick, and it could stay lit as long as the oil was there. I think I paid $1 for this at a local thrift store, sold it for $14. Here are a bunch of stick pins. These are not antique, they are probably vintage, probably 1960s, 1970s, maybe even into the 80s. They're stylistically designed to look like antique 1800s stick pins, but the difference here is that they're not made of any precious metals, and they the stones that they incorporate are rhinestones, either glass or plastic, as opposed to semi-precious or precious gemstones. But still, they're collectible. 25, so almost $5 a piece for these, and I pay $1 or $2 a piece for these when I buy them individually. A lot of these came out of just mixed jewelry lots that I got, and so instead of just trying to throw one on individually to sell it, I'll wait until I have a handful and I'll sell them in a small lot. So let's say I'm $2 in a piece on these, so we're $10 in, sold it for $24. This is an item that I was happy to sell, but really didn't make that much money. Certainly wasn't worth it if I had known it was going to take this much time and with what I paid, but I just thought it was cool. It's an antique, basically a cigarette holder. So if you've maybe seen like the long-stemmed ones that women in like the 1920s would hold. They would smoke the cigarette from a long. And I don't know really what the purpose of that was. I don't know if it was just the look of it or if they just didn't want to be that close to the cigarette. I'm not exactly sure. It may have just been a style. But what you have here is this piece is carved to look like a horse. It's carved out of meerschaum, which is a porous stone that is found mostly off of certain coasts in the country of Turkey. So Turkish coasts is where some of the nicest block meerschaum comes from. And so they carve it out. It's stark white. And then as you smoke it, the tar from the tobacco soaks into the stone, and it can cause really interesting looking colors, especially if it's carved to look like animals or people's faces or things. They can look really cool. But the other features of this is that the stem was made of Bakelite, which is a vintage type of plastic. And then this ring in the center it's very thin, but it's actually 18 karat gold. And these stamps right here are hallmarks. And so this was produced in Europe, probably in England, probably in the late 1800s. And a lot of pipes from that era utilized bands made of silver or various carat purities of gold. Sometimes these stems will be made of amber, or other times they're made of different types of plastics, lucite, or in this case, Bakelite. So I paid $80 for it. I only sold it for $100 after fees. I made very little. So that's too bad. I wouldn't say that this was an impulse buy, but it was kind of I think this is intriguing. It's interesting. I've never seen one before like this. And for that reason, I thought it might sell, and I was wrong. I don't know if this had been a pipe and not a cigarette holder, I think it would have done better. There are more people buying pipes than this, but lesson learned. It's fine. I did make a little bit of money on it. At the end of the day. This I held on to for a long time, and I thought it would wait again until we got closer to Christmas, and then somebody bought it. But it's like more of a kind of a paper material, even the binder of it, or the top and bottom. Night Before Christmas, it's the classic story, The Night Before Christmas, but it's a really old copy, and still pretty decent condition given its age and the fact that the material it's made out of is pretty fragile. $40 for that, and I think I paid $5 for a little bag that had multiple Christmas items in it, some antique Christmas invitation, like cards, things like that, and then this. So I made a lot of money back off of that just on this, and some of the other stuff has sold. Some of the other stuff is yet to be sold. Here was a pair of earrings that I bought for $3 at a thrift store, and when I got back, I discovered that these were in fact genuine pearls, and that the metal was 14 karat, solid 14 karat gold, yellow gold. This back right here that has this kind of wide loop that kind of comes back is called an omega back, because if you turn it up, it looks like the Greek omega character. And it was on the back of that, and I don't remember if I photographed, no, I guess I didn't, but it's on the back of that where it actually is marked 14K. The people there didn't know, they either didn't search for anything or they didn't know where to look. But the backs of these is actually some shell, and then it's a cultured pearl that is grown on the top of that, which is what they call a maybe pearl. They're beautiful gold. These sometimes sell as much as $300 or more. I had this for a while. I was trying to get more out of it, continue to lower it, but still, $200 off of a $3 purchase. I'll take that really any day. Moving on, we had this really cool lock. I was hoping I'd make more. I paid $20 for it at an estate sale, but what you can see is it was big, it was heavy, and this portion of the key, if you turn it to face you, is shaped. It's like cast iron. It's shaped like the number 3. I'm guessing, I did some research, I'm not 100% sure, but it's looking like this was probably a lock to a jail cell door. So cell door number 3 was shaped as a number 3, which very cool. I've seen others in my research out there. I'd never seen the number 3, but I have seen some other numbers. My guess is maybe somebody just thought it was cool, or maybe they're trying to collect an entire set of all the numbers, which would definitely be a cool collection to have. $20 turned that into $60, and that's great. Here was a variety of antique jewelry, and so antique I do mean 1800s to the very early 1900s, gold filled. So all of these were marked things that say like 1/20th 12 karat GF, or 1/10 14K GF, gold filled. Means they have a thin layer of gold filling on the outside. Some people collect this stuff just because it's antique jewelry. A lot of this stuff would have been stuff that you could have purchased from the Sears and Roebuck catalogs of the late 1800s. You could buy almost anything out of that. Pocket watches, rings, solid gold stuff, silver stuff, and a lot of gold-filled things. Bangles, chains, various pieces of jewelry like that. A really cool lot. Sometimes I sell these individually. Sometimes I sell them in small lots where they can really see the items. And other times I'll mix them in a bag. If they're worn a little bit, maybe not as attractive, maybe broken, but people will still buy this for the gold content. You can see it's 203 grams. I sold it for $210, and so it's you're usually going to get about $1 per gram of whatever you have. Silver, you're going to get about 75% of the gram weight. So if this had been 200 grams of silver, it probably would have been $150 that I would have got, 75%. But I was happy to get that. A lot of this, I can't tell you exactly what I paid because this was amassed from various individual pieces I bought and stuff that I pulled out of grab bags that was gold filled. And so it's really hard to put a number on it. My guess is I'd pay maybe $1 a piece. So there was probably 20 or 30 items in here. So let's just call it $30. Sold that for $210. Getting towards the end here of stuff today, we've got, this is just a vintage camera lens. It's a Japanese made lens. I bought this in a lot of camera equipment for $10. Big bin. It ended up having some really big, nice camera equipment in it. Either they were just trying to move it or they didn't know what it was. But I'm selling these off piece by piece. This one piece, $18, I've already, after fees, I'm already got my investment back, and several other things have sold in the $100 to $200 range, in fact, individually. So I did really well off of that lot. Lastly here, a Victorinox, this is a Swiss Army brand chronograph watch. So this is a titanium watch band. Little nicks and stuff. Definitely could be in better condition, but they're big collectors for Swiss Army brand things like watches, pocket knives, that kind of thing. I paid $3 for this at a local thrift store and sold it in the first week for $60. Pretty easy. Well, that's it, guys. Thanks so much for sticking around, watching all this today. We missed a couple of weeks. We had to take a couple of trips that were unexpected, but we'll get back in the rotation now. You can expect another one next week. I probably have 3 weeks worth, or 3 videos worth of things that have sold in order to make videos. So stick around. If you haven't checked out our other channel, Rusty the Reseller, my brother runs that, so please check that out. And others as well. We have Postcard Planet if you like postcards. We have High Spirits if you like outdoors, hiking and adventures. And there's others. So check us out. Subscribe if you haven't already, and we very much appreciate it. Take care.